We interrupt our program to bring you a special broadcast. The German news agency, Transocean, said today the broadcast...
Here's another late development, and this news keeps coming in as we're talking here. Here's other information just in from the...
All right, everybody, welcome to MetropolitanCon Virtual Day with our virtual panel with our celebrity guest, Mr. Bill Rogers. We're super excited to have you. As I hope many people may know, I am your friendly neighborhood Dustin Man.
And I am the magical Miss Emmy.
And, of course, this is Mr. Bill Rogers.
Hello, everybody.
How are you doing today, Bill?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Doing
fabulous.
What about you, Amy? Are you doing good?
I'm doing great.
That's what
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's like my first ever virtual day with MetropolitanCon, so I'm nervous.
Nice.
So.
Well, technically, it is also my first virtual panel as well.
And so, me too.
Whoa! Oh man, yeah. We need to set up a whole group chat after this.
Just a whole group chat.
Yeah, we'll get leather jackets.
There's a support group.
Get them with our names and stuff.
Exactly. We'll be like the T-Birds. What's up?
Yep, that's it. All right.
All right, Bill. So, Emmy, did you want to start off with the first question to kick off our virtual con, or did you want me to do that?
Well, why don't you do it?
Okay, I'll do that. All right, Bill, I know I've talked to you plenty of times, but for people that don't know, what got you into voice acting?
Well, it's a long, circuitous journey, but I will try to abridge it as quickly as possible. I actually, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a cartoonist, and I wasn't really very good at drawing. So I was okay. I was in the Art Honor Society in high school, and I was like, I'm gonna get into, animation and cartooning, and then as I took classes and then went off to college and realized that it wasn't something that it was going to work for me. But while I was in college, I started doing theater, and I was like, hey, this is great, and I really enjoyed acting and took to acting. And then even after college, I went and started taking more acting courses, and I lived in New York at the time. So I was studying with HB Studios and School for Film and Television, and I wasn't sure where I was going to go, if I was going to go stage, if I was going to go film, what I was going to do. And then back in 2001, there was an opportunity for me to work on a title called Assemble Insert for a company called Right Stuff International. They're actually located in Des Moines, but they recorded at the time out of New York. They had just started recording and dubbing anime into English. And they were like, hey, do you want to do this thing? You've got acting background. And I said, well, I've never done voice before. But I did a bunch of little bit parts in that, and they really liked me. So then they had me audition for my actual first credited role. Well, I mean, I was credited in Assemble Insert, but just as additional voices. But my first credited character was in a show called Boogie Pop Phantom, which was another Right Stuff title. And from there, I got in touch with a bunch of other voice actors and started working with vocal coaches and started taking classes that were more catering towards the voice acting end of things. And, the stage thing is great. I love theater acting, and I did it for 15 years, from 2000 to 2015. And it was just that working on stage, unless you're on a Broadway show, there's not really any money in it. There's very little, you can't really kind of support yourself. But the video games and animation and anime and stuff like that were what we're paying the bills. So in 2015, I made the transition. I moved to California, kind of stepped away from doing theater because, especially now in COVID, there's no theater scene, but there's the theater scene is different in LA than it is in New York. So now I primarily do, animation, anime, video games, commercials, just everything with my voice.
Nice. What was so you said you did 15 years stage acting?
I did.
What was your favorite play or performance that you did stage wise?
Well, it's a toss up because the most powerful dramatic piece I did was a play called "I Never Sang for My Father," and it's it's basically a show where it's like this guy who's constantly at odds with his dad, and his mom is kind of always being like the mitigator between the two of them. uh they're getting up in age, and spoiler alert, mom dies at the end of the first act, so the second act is just this raw, like, dealing with like these father son issues that are like just it was really powerful theater. And the director of the show had done stage and film and was a former Rockette, and she'd really like been like really just been through the ringer of the industry. And I was a young kid at the time, because this was, I don't know, maybe 2004, I guess it was. And so I was still pretty new, and she was like, I'm gonna make you do this, and you're gonna be great. And like, she kicked my ass. But the good thing about it was, after that, when I went out for other things and went out for even voice work or stage work or whatever, when I go, people are like, who are you training with? So I was Deborah Pedretti. She was amazing. So yeah, so that was like the best class teaching that I got, was actually working on a show with a director who just really ran me through the ringer. But personal favorite on the other end of things is a comedy by Neil Simon called Laughter on the 23rd Floor, which was all about his time when Neil Simon was young, working on Your Show of Shows, which was the Sid Caesar thing, which is like the precursor to like what we have with like Saturday Night Live and things like that, and the original sketch comedy show, as it were. And I have never done a show more than once in my career, except for that show, which I did 3 times, because I just loved it so much. Every time I'd find a production, I'd be like, I want to be in it. I don't care who. So that was one of my favorites, one of my favorite shows. So yeah,
Nice.
that's my theater background.
I actually, so you talked a little bit how you like kind of trained with someone, from what it sounds like, in the theater kind of world. How has that translated into like your voice acting and kind of like your voice acting career? Because you kind of touched a little bit on it, but I'm just more curious about like the in-depth stuff, like getting
Oh yeah.
really deep into it.
Sure. Well, actually, up until the pandemic, every year I'd fly back to New York. Yeah, I was doing it in New York when I was in New York, and now when I was in LA, like in the spring and the fall, I would fly back, and I lectured at NYU, and didn't get to do it this fall, or this spring, I should say, and won't be doing it this fall. But um, when I talk to the kids there, I talk to them as a voice actor with kids that are doing stage and things, and I explain it as that, like, there are 3 different spheres of major acting. There's voice acting, there's theater acting, and then there's film acting. And the thought of logic behind it is that theater and voice are like so far away from each other, because with theater acting, you're rehearsing every day for weeks, sometimes months, on a show, and you're working with all the other actors, and it's this big collaborative effort. And then with film acting, if you're on a set, because I've done some film acting, but not a lot, but when you're on a set for a film, you might be working directly with the person who's in a scene with you, but there might be somebody else who's in the movie that you don't share any screen time with, and you'll never see them. So maybe, the original table read at the beginning, and then at the end, for like a cast party or something, but you don't work with everybody. Whereas even if you're not on stage with somebody, you're going to build a relationship with those people, because you're waiting in the wings or in the green room or wherever you are while the show is going on. So you have these other people. Voice acting, like a good portion of it, is you're isolated in a booth by yourself recording, and you have nobody else to work off of. That said, they all really do take from each other, because at the core of it, you have to stay true to your performance. So while with theater, you'll be able to like actually always be working off of the energy of the other person, and you won't have that in voice acting. That's not necessarily to say that voice acting is easier than stage acting, because then, of course, with voice acting, even though you have to kind of just work with the director, or sometimes if somebody else is recorded, you can hear them and you can work off of that performance. But with theater actors, there's no second take. So it's like, you're up on stage, you got to get it right, you got to do it. And that's why there's all that rehearsal time. Whereas, with voice acting, you might read through the script, but you're not gonna, sit there and study it for weeks with somebody. Because as you perform, it's like we're building the performance as we go along. But at the fundamentals, they all require, good acting chops, just different subsets of acting.
Now you said voice acting, film acting, stage acting.
Mhm.
One thing that you didn't mention was TV shows.
Okay.
I know that voice acting, could go with either animated movies or video games or animated TV shows. But just regular live action TV show acting, do you think that that's a different monster in and of itself compared to filming and stuff like that? Or do you have any experience with the TV acting industry? Do you know anything about that? Because that's just one thing that you didn't mention that I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Dustin, because if you think about it, in each of those three major subsets, there are further subdivisions. Because in film acting, you have film, you have TV, you have commercials, you have things where you're on camera, but you're doing different things. With stage work, you have musicals, you have stage plays, you have cabarets, you have, improv. You have different things that are done as stage performances. With voice acting, there's video games, there's animation, there's anime, which is not so much as animation, because dubbing, like I do dubbing work for both live action and animation. There's actually 2 shows currently running on Netflix. There's a show called The Trial and another one called The Woods. Simple names. But I'm the leads in both of those shows. But the Woods was a Polish show, and The Trial was an Italian show, and the dubbing requirements of that are kind of similar to anime. But even that breaks off and subdivides, because with on camera, like with live action dubbing, it needs to be a more grounded performance than anime, which is more hyper realized, and there'll be a little bit more. You can get away with having a character having kind of a different sounding voice. Like a lot of the characters you hear in anime, if you heard somebody talking like that on the street, unless they had like some sort of voice affectation, you'd be like, what's going on with that? So
Yeah.
You thought you were going to give me a traffic ticket. Not today.
Exactly. I was in my car driving really, really fast. Speed, you have to win.
Well, that's cool. That's cool that like you broke it down into the subgenres. It's like music, like with metal. You got heavy metal, hair metal, black metal, pyro metal, screamo metal. You got all these different subgenres that are about close to the same thing, but they're different, and they have their own different tastes. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so hands down, one of the most famous voices that you do is Brock.
Yes.
What was that audition process like?
I am very curious about that too.
So, not sure if you're aware, but I took over for the voice of Brock in 2006. It was a situation where studios had changed, and they brought in new people and whatnot. But it was basically a situation where I had gotten the chance to audition for it and book the part, and now we're going on, I think it's 14 years now of work, because we're currently doing Pokemon Journeys, which is the 23rd season of Pokemon.
I heard
So
that.
and unfortunately, a few years back, Brock left the show to go become a Pokemon doctor, and he still comes back for guest visits. And actually, they redid the Mewtwo movie recently, where they did it in CG.
I saw that.
So yeah, that was a Netflix exclusive. Because now we're with Netflix. Actually, that was the weird thing about that was. I've been with the show so long that we've gone through so many different iterations. I don't know across the country where Pokemon necessarily started. For us in New York, it was there was a channel called the WB, and then it became the
Yeah.
CW,
Yeah.
and that was
That's where it started for
Yeah.
me. Was
Yeah.
WB,
There it started.
Kids WB, and then it
Kids
became
WB.
CW.
Yeah.
The
that's
CW,
where it
yeah.
started for me.
And when I got onto the show, it was at the tail end of that. We had done a special that had aired on a Saturday on the CW, and then with Battle Frontier, the first season I worked on, it went to Cartoon Network, and so we worked on Cartoon Network, and then we did that for a few years, and then it went to Disney XD, and then it was running on Disney XD, and then last year, the Mewtwo movie took a while to get released, and like they'd sometimes do a Fathom Events thing, and then like around the holidays they'd air it on Disney XD, and it didn't air, and we didn't see anything of it. And I was like, what's going on with that? And then I think it was in February they were like, a Netflix exclusive, and it went on Netflix. And then subsequently we started working on Pokemon Journeys, which then is now Netflix works with Pokemon, and we drop like 12 episodes at a time now instead of every week. It's every 3 months. Every 3 months they have a 12 episode, like here's the next 12. And so we're through 2 batches of that. I'm sure there'll be another one by the end of the year. And so we're still cranking away and doing the show.
You can't end the year without a Pokemon Christmas special.
Yeah,
you know
it would be a good year if there was a Pokemon
that has to
Christmas
be
special.
a thing. You know,
might as
like,
well brighten up
I
2020
mean, if
with
Star
one.
Wars came out with a Christmas special, you gotta have a
you gotta have a
Pokemon
Pokemon
Christmas
one.
special.
Pikachu
what's
saves
gotta
Christmas,
happen.
huh?
Exactly.
Pikachu saves
Pikachu
Christmas.
saves Christmas.
There we go, perfect.
And
right
then
there.
and then Brock can cook
Yeah.
all of the Christmas dinner for Ash
for
and everybody
everyone.
and the Pokemon as well.
There you go. He could
Yeah,
he could
and
make
you're
the
like,
gingerbread men.
Oh, Pika Pika, but it's really like, oh my god, I can taste holly and cinnamon
Yeah.
and,
And nutmeg.
and nutmeg and this Pokemon chow. It's fantastic.
And then he like shocks.
Yeah.
And everybody's just like, oh, Pikachu.
wah, wah, wah.
Thank you. It's so good.
What a Christmas special that.
Yes, Pikachu will have to power Santa's sleigh. I can't possibly get these presents delivered in time. Oh, ho, ho, ho. And then it Pika Pika, zzz, and the reindeer will just get shocked and go flying.
Yeah, exactly. Pika Pika with your cheeks so bright.
Pull my sleigh tonight.
They can sit him on top of Rudolph's head.
Exactly.
There we go. We gotta.
And then when Rudolph is slacking, Pikachu would just be like, Pika Pika, and then slap him a little bit, wake him up. You know, they don't have Starbucks in the North Pole,
Oh, yeah,
so
they
they need
don't have
Pikachu
Starbucks.
to give them that jolt of Yuletide joy to be able to make the rounds.
we're pretty much writing it right now. Why don't we just do it right now?
Yes.
Listen,
Get an animation studio on this right away.
Cool.
we got you a 12-episode Christmas special right now.
Right now. It starts.
Wow, Dustin, you're making it like an epic. I figured we could resolve this in 23 minutes, but Dustin's got bigger plans.
No, there's a whole thing.
episodes.
There's
It's
a
gotta be
whole
12
thing.
episodes.
Team Rocket tries to take over the North Pole.
Yeah.
And it's this whole infiltration thing going on with
And Meowth's
Ash
trying to
and
be
Brock.
Rudolph.
Yeah, Meowth. They're trying to steal all the presents. No. We're going to combine so many different Christmas stories into this
Yeah,
Pokemon
exactly.
special.
One big Christmas.
It's going to
story.
be one massive mashup.
One massive.
You're welcome, Netflix.
Yeah,
You're
there we
welcome.
go.
There you go.
We pretty much wrote it for you guys.
Professor Oak can be Ebenezer Scrooge. There you go.
Yes, there we go. Perfect. There we go.
I know this is a little bit off topic. This is a little bit off topic, but I found out the news today that with Detective Pikachu, I know that you weren't a part of that, but
No.
for the live action Professor Oak, the people that made Pokemon and wanted this movie to happen, they wanted Robin Williams to play Professor Oak. And because of that, that is why they don't put Professor Oak into the movie, because that was their first and only choice for Professor Oak. And they didn't want anybody else to play him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's
I found that out today, and I thought that'd be interesting to share.
Yeah, that's hey, it's something I didn't know.
But we're not as
Yeah.
amazing as Robin Williams is. We're not talking about him. We're talking about Mr. Bill Rogers. Do you have a question? Because I know that there was
I'm just a
something
guy.
that you wanted to ask.
Yeah. So I just started playing Breath of the Wild. and after years of it being out.
Yeah.
And
it came out 3 years ago.
Yeah,
just
it came out 3 years ago. See, all my days are just blending together in quarantine. So I think that like Breath of the Wild came out like 20 years ago and really came out like fairly recently. But I just started like Breath of the Wild, and I went through the whole entire trial period where you're like talking to the hooded figure and you're just like, who's
Who's
this
the
man
old
I'm
man?
talking to? Yeah, and I'm just like, just give me your paraglider, man. And he's just like, no, go
No!
go unlock these shrines and stuff and go figure this stuff out. And I'm like, fine, I guess. And then you find out he's king of Hyrule. And I actually heard an interesting story about how you had to hide the fact that you voiced the king.
I
And
did.
I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that story and like kind of how hard was it for you to like keep this project under wraps, because usually they're pretty like secret about like Zelda games and stuff. So
I
want to know how hard it was for you to like keep that like voice acting role like under wraps for so long.
It was really strange because for me, even the audition process nowadays, even pre-quarantine, auditions are mostly done from home now. My agent will send me stuff every night and be like, hey, here's a bunch of stuff, get it to me by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I'll audition. And then every once in a while it's like, hey, you booked, all right, cool, this is when you're going to go into the studio. And now, of course, in quarantine, it's, hey, go climb into your booth at home and record, because we're recording from home. But every once in a while, when we would get projects, sometimes we would need to go and audition in person. And actually, with a lot of projects, like sometimes you'll get a thing called a callback. Like if they're like, we like you, we're really close to casting you, but it's down to like you and 2 other people, we're going to do a callback. And those are usually the times where you'll go in and you'll audition in person. And that's what happened with quick side note on Transformers. Like I auditioned from home for that, but then when I got a call back for Wheeljack, they were like, you're going to come in and you're going to spend a half hour with the director. We're going to go through a bunch of materials and you're going to read and we'll see. And then I ended up getting cast as Wheeljack. But with Breath of the Wild, I got an audition and it was like, hey, Nintendo's doing a game and they want you to go in and audition, not even a callback, just go in and audition. And I was like, okay. And the sides were very generic. Sides are what they call the audition pieces that we read off of. And I was thinking, oh, it's like another Fire Emblem game, because it's like there's an archer, there's a warrior, there's a king, there's just all these different things. And I was like, this is probably just like another RPG thing or something like that, like a Fire Emblem or something. Not to say that the Fire Emblem isn't a big thing. It's a big deal. It's absolutely a big deal. But I was like, oh, well, like maybe it's another Fire Emblem game. Never in my mind did I think, oh, they're making a new Zelda game. Just like we're gonna do what we do. So and actually the weird thing is that it was towards the end of the life cycle of the Wii U. So it was before the Switch had come out. And so I read and they liked me. And I read for a couple different people that day. I read for what ended up being Daruk, and I ended up reading for who ended up being Rivali, and I ended up reading for the King. But then when they called me back in, they were like, we want you to reread for the King. And I went back in for a callback specifically for that. And they were like, okay, well, we'll get back in touch with you. And when I walked out of the callback, the director, Jamie Mortellaro, who is also the voice of Sidon in the game, he came out and he was like, oh, buddy, you were so great. I'd never worked with him before. He was really, 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 really supportive. He's like, I think you've got this. He's like, you've got this, but I don't want to say anything, but we'll see what happens. And a couple weeks later, they were like, hey, we'd like to have you come in. You booked a part. And I went, okay. I walked in that day and Jamie was there with a couple people from Nintendo, and they were like, hey, these are this person, and they were like, hey, just so you know, so this is the new Legend of Zelda game. And I was just like, wait, what?
That's crazy. That's like super mind-blowing right there to just like walk in there just like, hey, you're voicing in the new Zelda game.
Yeah, you're voicing in the new Zelda
game.
So
it was just like, okay. And they were like, so get in the booth. I was like,
Get to
yeah,
work, Bill.
no
What are you
pressure at
doing?
all.
Why are you just standing there?
And
That
that's got
said,
to be a big deal because, like you were
Yeah.
saying, at the end of the life cycle of the Wii U, like Breath of the Wild was hands down like the
Yeah.
biggest game that introduced the Switch.
Yeah. I'm
And,
pretty
you
sure
know,
that's the reason
and
why a
then-
lot
It
of
was-
people got the Switch.
it was the launch game. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
their
it
launch
the
game.
game, and then being such a pivotal part of it, the King of Hyrule.
Yeah.
That must have been so much
Yeah.
to keep inside.
so much
It
much
was-
pressure.
That said, I will just quick side note. That day, my first session, I basically just did an hour of because when you, as you probably know, Emmy, when you run
Yeah.
around at the beginning, every time you see him, and if he's sitting by the fire or he's
Yeah.
waiting out in the middle of the woods, kind of looking around, it's like So the thing is that we recorded that day because a couple months later they were you guys aware of E3? It's like the Electronics Entertainment Expo. Okay.
Oh yeah.
They do that out in LA, and E3 that year, the Switch hadn't come out. They had announced that the Switch was coming out, and they were like, Breath of the Wild is going to be a launch, but Breath of the Wild also was developed for the Wii U. So they had a bunch of stations set up to play Breath of the Wild. And at the time, my roommate Eric is a huge Zelda fan, and he's played all the games, and he's very well versed in all the Hylian myths.
We have talked before. I am familiar with Eric and his fandom for Zelda.
So we went and at E3, because again, I couldn't say anything about it. We waited online for almost 3 hours to play the game. I got this T-shirt from it.
I love
I got the T-shirt for play. They were like, "Hey, here's a T-shirt." I was like, "Thank you. I'll wear it always."
You down here inside, you're just like, oh yes, I was a part of this game.
And you're just looking at him. It's like, yes, I deserve this
Yeah.
T-shirt.
My T-shirt.
I don't know why it's not gold, but yeah.
So all that, and then because I had to keep it quiet, I had to wait online 3 hours to actually play the game. So but
you
yeah,
grab that
it's-
shirt and you're just like, oh my god. You're looking at your friend like, oh my god, this shirt is like fit for a king. You know what I mean?
I'm just tapping down the hands.
It's fit for a king, and then you just look at him like,
No, the best was when we were playing. I was at the station next to him, and as we're running around, you get to the part where you first meet the old man,
Yeah.
and he's playing, and I know he's not going to be able to catch it because I'm not saying anything. First of all, the king's got a deeper voice anyway, so it's just
Yeah.
like, but also on top of that, like all he's doing is going. So at one point, I like kind of leaned in and I was like, "This is a great game, isn't it?" Eric was like, "Yeah, it's amazing." I'm like, "Okay." He doesn't suspect a thing.
Yeah, he's trying to drop that subtle hint.
It was a pretty big get. The longest I've waited on NDA for a game though was Street Fighter. When I was in Street Fighter V as the voice of Urien, that game I'm trying to think, like I think it came out in 2015. Was it? I think it was 2015. And like I had auditioned for it and like around the holidays of 2013. And that was a situation where we got the auditions and the character names were different, but I looked at the auditions and I was like, this is Street Fighter.
You just knew deep down
It's like-
inside.
but I read for a bunch of characters in that and ended up getting cast as Urien, and we recorded in 2014, and then the game came out in March of 2015. But the thing was, Urien didn't get released until later in the year as DLC. So
Yeah,
even
it was a
when the game
DLC
came
version.
out,
Yeah.
I was like, "Yay, the game's out!" And my director was like, "No, you can't talk about it." He's like, "Your character is a specific reveal that's gonna happen at the end of the year, so keep your damn mouth."
Isn't Urien like a brother of another character or a relative of one of the Street Fighters?
Yeah, Gil is another character, actually voiced by Liam O'Brien. And Gil, so when I was finally able to talk about it, I didn't have to wait till my character finally came out as much as there was a situation where the game came out in March, and I think it was like July or August or something like that. They released a story mode called The Shadow Awakens or something like that. And when that came out, Urian was in that, and you could like play as Urian for like one round in the middle of the thing. But I then was added to the credits, and they were like, okay, you can now talk about being Urian. And then he finally became a playable character later in the year. But um, in that as well, Gil has a little brief cameo, and it was like, is Gil going to be a character? Are they going to make him playable? Because Urian and Gil were characters for Street Fighter 3, and people were like, is that going to happen? Is that going to be a thing? I'm like, I don't know. And then, of course,
like, I know.
You know everything.
well, actually, when I first recorded in that first year of the game, I didn't know that Gil was going to be a playable character. It wasn't until so they're doing a 5th season of DLC for it, and then I think this is the last season for Street Fighter V. But last year, season 4's DLC, Gil was released, and in that I went in like, I think it was like earlier in the year or something like that. Again, it was another thing where it was like, you're in Gil's like personal story for Gil's character when he comes out at the end of the year. But again, you can't say to anybody that Gil's coming out. So it's like, congrats, Liam. I can't say anything. but so they finally made him a fully playable character. So
nice. All right. So
and one other quick thing. Unlike Urian and Gil's relationship, Liam and I both started off in New York, and he is the sweetest person ever. Like, it's really hard to hate him in Street Fighter and be like, I'll get you, Gil, and then be like, but Liam's such a great guy.
I can't
I'll get you, Gil. Hey, Liam, do you want to go get lunch after this? No, I'm buying. No worries, bro. Yeah, you're cool. Yeah. Okay, so for people that are beginning in the industry, especially during this COVID time, this hectic time,
Yes.
For people that want to get into the voice acting industry, what's like some of the biggest pieces of advice that you could give somebody that is being introduced to this industry?
Well, I will say the most important thing is that voice acting consists of 2 words, voice and acting. And it's weird because acting is the most important part of it. Voice, it's good that if you have a pleasant voice, and it's good if you have a versatile range, but there are some people who are really good actors, and maybe they'll have a quirky voice, and that might benefit them. They may not land a lot of work because it's like, okay, we can only have you as this specific type of thing.
Yeah.
But like Yeardley Smith comes to mind, Lisa Simpson. Like, Yeardley Smith sounds like Lisa Simpson all the time, and they were like, that sounds really great, we're going to make her Lisa. But Yeardley does film on camera acting, and you've seen Yeardley in a couple different movies and different things and different TV shows, but she doesn't do a lot of voice acting because it's a very specific sound that she has. But that said, the acting part of it is the most important. And when I started, I didn't have a lot of like vocal training, but I had a lot of acting training. And so that helped me, because even though it was stage acting, acting is acting. And so if anybody wants to get in this, the thing I would say is, if you're in high school, go out for the high school play, get involved with the high school drama club if you can. If you're in college, maybe consider studying acting, go, become an acting major. But just getting out there and getting, the experience and doing the work. And I meet a lot of kids at conventions that are like, I want to be an anime voice actor. And I'm like, well, okay, but have you considered like stage or film or other things? Like, no, this is the thing I want to do. And it's like, well, it's good to have something that you're very passionate about, but keep your mind open to it, because like, yeah, I mean,
you started with stage acting, and then that led you into a career of voice acting.
Yeah.
You said that you did 15 years of stage acting, and now that led you into your years of being in voice acting
Yeah.
and having
And there's a good amount of overlap with that as to what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah.
It's like I spent 15 years as a voice actor and 15 years as a stage actor, and at a ripe old age of 70, I've finally made it.
But it's definitely like one open door leads to like another potential other
Exactly.
open door.
To be, you know, an expert in something, you have to experience other things or fail at other things to learn
Yeah.
to what you're good at. So
Yeah.
you can't, like you were saying with the dude that was just like, I want to be an anime voice actor. You have to branch out with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, because you could say, I want to be an anime voice actor all day, but
Mhm.
then you get in your first play and then you get consumed by it as somebody that has done plays before.
Yeah.
Like, that's an intoxicating feeling,
Yeah.
especially when you do the scene on point and you're able to get the audience involved.
And that sense
That's
of like inner pride.
Yeah,
too.
that sense of pride and just fulfillment of getting the audience involved to where you lay down a line to where it's serious and then the whole audience is quiet.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
they're feeling you the entire time. You don't hear any chitter chatter or like, you know, they're not feeling the scene, so they're gonna be talking like, oh my
Yeah.
god, what are we doing? Hey, you want to go get a beer?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, they're not doing that. They're really feeling you. Or with TV shows or movie acting, something that you film and then you rewatch, and then people feel what you're feeling, what you're portraying in that. You know, you gotta find your niche.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
got to find your niche, and you just can't simplify it into just one thing. You know, like that could be your goal, but you have to go through the trenches.
Yeah.
You have to go through the stuff
Yeah.
to be able
And
to get that way.
even within the realm of voice acting, I've remained open to things. Like I said, working on the Netflix shows has been a totally different experience than working on anime. I've done some prelay animation work. I've done a good amount of video game work. I've done some commercial work, and oddly enough, commercial work is actually like that's the biggest paying gig you can
Yeah.
get. Like if you book commercials, then it's like, oh well, you know, I mean, I could live off of commercials, but like you want that fulfillment of doing, you know, some sort of, you know, either an animation or live action or something that kind of, you know, instead of just talking about, you know, this new you know, I don't know, pharmaceutical or bathroom cleaner, you know.
Yeah.
So
Mucinex.
Yeah, I'm using it.
leave the Mucinex man alone. There was still a little bit of creativity in that.
There's different avenues that you can go into to find to where your voice or to where what you want to do actually shines, you know.
Yeah.
Because there could be like that dude was like, I want to be an anime voice actor, but then he tried it out and it wasn't his thing, and then he gets into something else and finds like, oh wow,
He finally finds
this
his niche.
this is what I was meant to do.
Yeah,
This is exactly what I was supposed to do, not the anime stuff. The anime voice acting was a stepping stone to what I was supposed to do. You know.
And even a step further than that, like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a cartoonist. I wanted to be an animator. I wanted to draw comic books or do something like that. And I didn't do that, but I'm still in that realm of creativity. Whereas like maybe I'm not animating a program, but I'm doing voice work for it. So yeah, you never know. You never know where your road's going to lead. Just, you know, always be open to things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you're still kind of doing like a piece too of like your original dream. It's just in a different kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
kind of.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Kinda
still
cool.
under the dome.
It's still in the realm.
It's still in the dome, but you're just in a different quadrant
yeah.
in the dome. You were just like,
Exactly.
yeah, I thought that this wooded area would be pretty cool, but this beach area over
Yeah,
here is
this
pretty
beach
freaking
area is
nice.
kinda
I'm gonna
nice.
go over here and hang out here with my beach chair and my umbrella and hang out in
Yeah.
the sun and do some wheel jacks and some broth. You know
Yeah,
what I
some
mean?
wheel jacks and some broth
All
over
right.
here on the beach.
Okay, so I have one little quick game. We were gonna do Who's That Pokemon,
Oh my god.
but
Yes.
we didn't have enough ink.
And I'm a terrible artist.
So what we're gonna do Emmy's gonna set a timer
Okay.
for 10 seconds.
Oh boy.
All right,
Uh-huh.
and you're gonna do as many, if you're willing, if you can do as many Pokemon voices as you can in 10 seconds.
I'm very excited.
We're gonna
All right.
We're gonna post the 10 seconds up on the camera.
Okay.
I'll tell you when we start, and just
just-
cancel it, and then okay. Well, we'll
Okay.
post it, and we'll do. You can keep this in, Mark, if you want, but we'll do it post edit at 10 seconds, like on the clock on the whatever.
Yeah.
But we'll
Okay.
tell,
It's gonna go over. I'm more than 10 seconds worth of Pokemon.
but we're gonna see how many that you can do in
Off the
10
top of my
seconds.
head.
Off
Okay.
the top of
Yeah,
your
off
head
the
in
top of your
10
head.
seconds. All right.
Okay.
3,
All right.
2, 1, go.
Magnatan, Magazine, Coffee, Grogak, Grogak, Toxic Rogue.
That's
Oh.
the timer.
Okay, that was it. That was
That's
10
it?
seconds.
That's
That
it?
was 10 seconds. That was 10 seconds.
I was just getting warmed up.
That was a decent amount of Pokemon. That was a lot of range
I
that you were
know.
doing.
Grogak caught me.
Yeah, I was about to say,
like,
Kroger caught me a little bit
Yeah.
when you were doing it. Oh man, but that was
No, my worst is Hydreigon. He's a 3-headed dragon, and he was in, I think it was like movie 10 or something like that, and he just kind of showed up a little, and I did it, and I was like, yeah, I can do this. And then there was another episode where Iris, who was one of the Pokemon trainers, had to like train a wild Hydreigon, and I had to basically shout throughout like the entire, it's like a really throaty type of thing, and doing that for like 2 hours, and I was just like, so not fun.
I'm gonna call it a night.
Exactly.
Eat me a lozenge and drink me some chamomile, and I'll be back tomorrow. Okay, bye.
Much easier to do chin-cha or soda water, you know.
Yeah, high pitched ones. Yeah. That's, I mean, I'm not ranged in mine, but the high pitched ones, I have a high pitched voice, so I can definitely do Meat Rod from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, man. So I can get in there every once in a while when I feel like it. You know what I mean? But I can't do deep voices at all. I just can't do that. Yeah, I couldn't do Batman. I could probably do like preteen Robin if I really tried.
Yeah.
But I
Not my dad.
But Bill, it was so fantastic having you on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for everyone that's watching on our virtual day. We love you guys.
Thank you guys.
Don't forget about our vendor day. If you're in Chattanooga or close to Chattanooga, come out to our vendor day. That's Sunday, which is the next day after this. Come and see us in Chattanooga. It's going to
2
be
days
excellent.
of fun.
2
Virtual
days of
day
fun.
and vendor
Virtual day
day.
and vendor day. Bill, anything you want to say to the fans right now?
Well, I don't know if we're still doing, Mark said something about doing a virtual signing, so I think we're doing that. So hopefully I'll see some of the fans out there for that.
Yes, you will. But for the people that aren't.
For the people that aren't, like I said, there'll probably be more Pokemon coming soon, but probably like I would say towards the end of the year. We did the first 6 episodes of Transformers War for Cybertron. The Siege arc is out on Netflix. Go watch it. But Earthrise, they dropped a trailer. They haven't given a date, but hopefully soon. For the younger set out there, although Transformers is for kids of all ages, there's but for the younger set out there that like the Ben 10 cartoon and whatnot, there's a game that just came out last week. Well, yeah, I guess it'll be 2 weeks from like when this actually posts.
Yeah.
It came out in early October. There's a Ben 10 game called Ben 10 Power Trip, and in it I am the voice of Wrath. So
Yes, I love Wrath.
let me tell you something. Wrath is gonna beat you up. So yeah. So go get the game. Go climb in the mountains. Unlock the Wrath on your Omnitrix, and then take over with Wrath. So
That's excellent. Bill,
Yeah.
we love you, and everybody.
Thank you.
So much, Bill.
Yes, and everybody
you.
at home, we love you. And stay tuned for the next panel, or
We will
don't be
see you
afraid to
guys
stop by for
soon.
Bill's one-on-one meet and greet, and we will see you guys soon.
Yeah.
We love you guys.
We love you guys.
We love you guys.
Is that Brock?
Huh?
Hey! Brock!
Such a lovely flight attendant in all her radiance.
Misty! Hey, Ash. How have you been doing? Long time no see, Pikachu. Let me introduce you. They're my friends, and we've all traveled together before. Nice to meet you. I'm Misty. I'm also the Cerulean gym leader.
I'm Brock, a Pokemon breeder. I'm also the former pewter gym leader.
What are you two doing here? Oh, Professor Oak asked us to come. Oh, you must be the special guest.